Welcome to Men in America. America is at the crossroads. Every day, we're being herded closer and closer to socialism. And perhaps the murkiest issue is socialized healthcare. Meanwhile, with each passing day, the lines between personal choice and public health are becoming more and more blurred. And what happens when government takes control of the medical system and doctors and nurses become tools of the state? In a perfect world, that could be a beautiful thing. But what happens in the real world? And what happens when those with absolute power are corrupted absolutely? Joining me today, we've got Dr. Enver Tothi, a Chinese surgeon who has firsthand experienced medical tyranny, as well as Mitchell Gerber, an expert who's dedicated his life to exposing these crimes against humanity. Mitchell and Dr. Tothi, thank you so much for joining us here. We're so grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Now,
before we jump in, I first want to see, where's our audience joining us from? I love seeing where everyone's at. I got hello from New York. We've got people in New York, Boston, Massachusetts, Papa Lena's, Joseph Malone from Ireland. Thank you. Patricia, New Hampshire. Yes, Joel, Austin, Texas. Good to have you here. Robert, California. Great, thank you for coming. Florida, I'm very jealous of you in Florida. Audrey, Tennessee. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Mitchell, where are you joining us from today?
Well, Vietnam, about 100 miles away from the Chinese border.
Wow, wow. And Dr. Tothi?
London.
London, great. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the show. Dr. Tothi, why don't you tell us your story?
All right. I got quite a few stories to tell, but I have heard your introduction about this program. I would, you said, what will happen? The government controls that NHS or medical system. I would like all audience to think about what will happen if government controls all guns, because America is heading towards that banning your pistols, your guns. That is a first step to achieve socialism. Then all Americans, you will be like us. How? Listen to us. I was born in Xinjiang, eastern part of Xinjiang. That is northwest China. And I was an oncology surgeon. And then in 1995, one day, it was a Wednesday, my chief surgeon called me and said, can you go to the theater and ask for largest pack of tools, operation tools. Then ask for 2 nurses and 2 assistants and call for our van. Then wait for me at the hospital gate next day morning, 9:30. So I did. I was quite excited. As a young surgeon, I don't know what we are going to do, but I was quite excited because definitely we are going to do something unusual because we are going out of the hospital. The hospital I used to work, it was called the Central Hospital of Railway Bureau of Urumqi. So I got everything prepared, and the next morning, Wednesday morning, 9:30, at the hospital gate, our chief surgeon appeared in the car, and he told us, said, "Follow us." So we jumped into the van, and we started following them. And from the direction of traveling, I can say that we are traveling to the Western Mountain District. That is one of the Urumqi district. And we had a branch hospital there. I thought we were going there, but halfway to the journey, we turned left again. And I got lost. I said, where are we going? And our driver, he knows. He said, this is the way, the road going to the Western Mountain execution ground. I was scared. I said, what are we going to do there? And I even thought maybe they're going to shoot me. I don't know. Anyway, we were born into that society. Just like you were born straight into the washing machine, got your brain washed, and you see that system, whatever that system was, you think that is the best system. And we have been trained from this kindergarten that no questions asked. You have to do whatever you have been told to do. No matter if you are a nurse, if you are a surgeon, doesn't matter. Because in China, then there's only one employer, that is the state. Everybody, if you have a job, you are working for the state. There's no way you say, I'm going to fire my boss. No, you can't do that. If you do, the jail cell, prison cell will be waiting for you. So, since we had been formed like that, we don't ask questions. So, by the time we arrived in that execution ground, our two chief surgeons were waiting behind a hill, and then he said, "You guys wait here, and when you hear gunshots, you come around." And we started waiting anxiously. We couldn't help but smoking, and we don't know what will happen. Then we don't know how long time passed. We start hearing the noise from other side. The people shouting and the whistles blowing and people chanting, and you can hear truck engine noise. Then gunshots. It wasn't like a machine gun shooting. It was like many rifles shoot at the same time. Since we have been told you come around after you heard the gunshot, that means gunshot is command. So we jumped into the one and we drove in. From the left side, we can see there were more than 10 prisoners, 10 bodies lying down on the ground on the slope of the mountains. All of them, they were wearing the prisoners' uniform and shaved like me. And the bullet shoot from here and come out from here. So whole this part is blowing away. Since we were, surgeon, and we got used to see such bloodshed, we were not scared by that. Then there was a police officer said, "Go to the far right. Far right. That one is yours." And I was even more scared. Why that one is mine? What do you mean that one is mine? Anyway, we have to go. So when we come to the far right, there was another body with civilian's uniform, with long hair, lying down on the ground. And our chief surgeon called me and briefed me and said, "Now, do as quick as you can, remove liver and the 2 kidneys." I understood what we are going to do. From that moment, I become a robot, trained robot or programmed robot to do the task programmed to do. Then it didn't take so long. But what was different was that when I cut his skin open, I can see blood coming out. That means the heart still pumping the blood. And his body also tried to struggling to resist my insertion. But he was knocked out, or off, too weak to resist. If you ask me if I was scared or what I thought, something wrong, no. I just become a robot. And since we were educated in a way that our country was the best country on earth, we are the happiest people on earth. Imagine just like North Korea now. So anyone who has been sentenced to death is enemy of the state. And every citizen of the country has duty to eliminate enemy of the state. You see, that is our duty, to eliminate enemy of the state. So I didn't feel any guilty. I didn't have any feeling. Even to the opposite, I might even a little happy because I had such experience and doing such operation in the wild, in the field, outside of the hospital. Anyway, I found such an operation is so easy than the normal operation in the theater. In the theater, it might take 2, 3, or 4 hours, but I just used 30 or 40 minutes, because when you cut these organs out, you don't mind to damage the organs next to it, because the organ next to it, you don't need it. In the normal surgery, you have to protect everything, not to damage. But in this case, what you do is damage. I find it is really easy. So I handed over liver and the 2 kidneys. And our chief surgeon said, okay, now you take your team back to the hospital, and remember, nothing happened today. We know what that means. Since that day on, none of us has ever talked about it. Until I was in London, in Westminster, in 2009, there was a presentation by Ethan Gutman. He was introducing the concept of organ harvesting by introducing a book called The State Organ. And he made a conclusion by saying it is extremely difficult to have first-hand evidence. Then all my memories, which I tried to forget, has come back. I raised my hand and I told them, I said, I'm not going to ask a question, no comment, but I'm going to tell you a story. And that was the day I confessed to the world.
How did that feel?
That feel, I cannot say I feel really relieved. Actually, I was more worried. I worried how the rest of the world going to take me, how they are going to look at me. I was surgeon meant to save life. What I have done is I actually caused a life to stop. That man shot to the right chest so that he's knocked off, so that he will die eventually, but he will not die immediately, so that there's time for me to remove the organs. And in reality, technically, I caused his death because I removed all organ and didn't reconstruct his internal system. You see? So I was actually more worried about this, how the whole world going to look at me.
Now, well, first off, thank you for sharing that story. My goodness. It's hard to even hear.
It is.
You mentioned that you were just robotic. And I think that a lot of people that grew up outside of a communist country might have a hard time understanding that. And I remember I read one of your different articles talking about how even from childhood, you were used to seeing dead bodies.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about maybe some of the things that perhaps conditioned you growing up under the dictatorship of the Chinese Communist Party that would have desensitized you to death? Because that seems to be one of the major ways that they maintain the control of their citizens.
When I was born, and the CCP is already taken control of China before I was born. So I was born straight into that system. So whatever I learned from the school is that system. So I would rather say I have brainwashed when I come to London by the civilization. My brain was washed back to the normality. But before that, my brain was empty, and then that is all things I received. So in my mind, there's violence is normal, because Chinese Communist Party's manifest is violent revolution. So they have to maintain violence. And then during the Cultural Revolution, every year we can see no less than 3 corpses, 3 persons killed themselves. They have to kill themselves in the open field so that people will see. Why? If the person killed himself in a closed place, nobody see that, their family will be still in trouble. The authority will ask, where is he? Where you hided him? So they have been forced to kill themselves in the open public so that everybody knows this man is dead. Yeah, that is the system. And we have seen a lot. It becomes normal to us.
Now, I have a question actually for you, Mitchell. I know that you've studied this extensively, and is this something that is a more isolated event? Is it just, criminals? I know that when China was pressed about organ harvesting, I remember seeing this in the news a couple of years back, they had mentioned that, it's just the prisoners that, are executed. So is it just the criminals themselves that they're executing anyway and they're making use of that? Or is this something more sinister?
Well, again, just hearing Dr. Enver Tothi's testimony, and it's just a tip of the iceberg. I sat down with the Honorable Doctor, quite a hero in my eyes, and in the world's eyes, for exposing this new form of evil, Seth, that the world hasn't come to realize yet. This is a state-sanctioned genocide, normalized in Chinese society, concocted by the Chinese Communist Party, the reign of terror that has wiped out 100 million people, decimated 5,000 years of Chinese culture, destroyed intentionally millions of innocent girls. And I want to share something from a letter that I received from the World Organization to investigate the persecution of Falun Gong and others who had been slaughtered under the Chinese Communist Party. And they shared something very poignant to what you were saying to me. Is this something that is just isolated, or is this large scale? This is large scale, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that is a new form of evil, and Enver can elaborate on that. But I just want to share, 60 years ago, when Felix Frankfurter, a US Supreme Court judge of the Jewish faith, heard that the Nazis were slaughtering Jewish people in the concentration camps, his first reaction was, I can't believe this is true. This is the Supreme Court, US Supreme Court judge. American society reacted to the Holocaust, believed the unbelievable. Back then, many Germans could not believe the massacre of Jews happened nearby. Weimar is a world-famous city in Germany. It was enriched by music of Bach, the novels of Goethe, the poems of Schiller, and the architecture of Bauhaus. It has also a notorious Nazi concentration camp, Buchenwald. There were over 50 to 60,000 Jews killed there from 1937 to 1945. When the US soldiers liberated the camp, they were completely astounded by the horrific scene they witnessed. Corpses that had not been cremated or buried were everywhere. More than 20,000 prisoners were barely alive. When the horrific truth was exposed in public, the Weimar citizens could not believe it at all. In their view, the Nazi officers who guarded the concentration camps were gentle and polite. They had refined outlooks, they appreciated art. Some were moved to tears by Beethoven's music. They could not believe these people were able to carry out such heinous atrocities. One woman even accused the US military of fabricating the pictures to vilify Germany. What we are dealing with, Seth, and I've been going on this campaign or crusade to expose this for 21 years. I started on May 4th, 2001. I met up with Enver many years later, where we were on a coalition in Westminster Abbey to expose this at a child trafficking court. And the evidence is shocking. 52 pieces of evidence by David Kilgour and David Mattis and Ethan Gutman, the main investigators from Canada and America. They started the investigation in 2006, where 18 pieces of hardcore evidence was shown to prove that these allegations are confirmed through phone calls, through surgeons like Dr. Enver Tothi, through prison guards. This is run by the Chinese military. The highest ranking forms of the Communist Party, from President Xi to President Hu Jintao to President Jiang Zemin in 1999, the former president of China, have all been complicit in these crimes. The World Health Organization knows about this. The United Nations know about this. Matter of fact,
what do you think, Mitchell? I'm going to jump in quickly about. I know that recently at a CNN town hall, when Biden was asked about the Uyghur, basically concentration camps, and he brushed it off as being a cultural norm. I know that Trump and specifically Mike Pompeo were very focused on issues like these, but do you think that Biden and his administration are aware of this, or are they doing anything against this?
They are in the bed of the Chinese Communist Party. They are aligned. So is the United Nations and the World Health Organization. I'm sure Enver can reiterate, because he's traveled to many countries with the investigators, David Kilgour and David Mattis, and talked to many United Nations representatives, parliaments. So I think the sentiment is quite dismal, that people have chosen to align with the CCP. Biden has chosen to align with the CCP and cover this up. Same as Clinton and same as Obama. Unfortunately,
why would they do that? Why would they choose to act like that?
I'll tell you why. Because of the money involved and the power that the CCP has over the governing bodies in this world. Look, the CCP has the second largest military, the largest population, now the largest economy. It's been infiltrating into every governing intelligence agencies, multinational corporations, social media, big pharma, you name it. The Australian just released a database of 1.95 million CCP loyalists and spies infiltrating. So they have been shutting this down and not allowing the world to know the truth. So yes, this is run by the military. And what is actually going on, Seth, is hundreds and thousands of innocent Falun Gong practitioners of this ancient spiritual meditation, mind and body practice, similar to yoga, house Christians, Tibetans, Buddhists, and Uyghur Muslims have been sent by the Chinese military to state-mandated hospitals, over 250 labor camps, 36 death camps, and over 1,800 hospitals, turning their doctors into murderers, cutting out the organs of these practitioners, particularly the Falun Gong, while alive, sedating them just a little bit. And as Dr. Enver Tothi was saying, the blood is still flowing, so these people are alive, cutting out all the organs and then selling the organs for a multi-billion-dollar business. So therefore, the old saying, see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. So this is for money. It's run by the Chinese military, and people are making a fortune. And that is why Biden has aligned himself, because of the massive amount of money that's involved.
Gosh. Actually, let's play a quick trailer. This is a trailer for a movie called Hard to Believe that, Mitchell, you shared this with me beforehand, and this was very helpful for me. So let's go ahead and cue the trailer.
By 2000, Falun Gong practitioners were disappearing into labor camps in mass numbers. At the same time, Chinese hospitals began promoting their organ transplant expertise.
I'm David Matus, and with me is David Kilgore. We've been asked to investigate allegations that there has been harvesting of organs of Falun Gong in China. David Kilgore is a former member of parliament and former cabinet minister for Asia Pacific, and I'm a Winnipeg lawyer doing immigration, refugee, and international human rights law in Winnipeg. And we have now done our investigation, and we're producing this report. And I didn't know whether it was true or not, and so my task initially was to try to figure out a way of approaching the issue so that I could either prove it or disprove it and not just walk away and say, I don't know.
The number of executions in China varied widely depending on who was counting. But Matus says no matter which number he used, the number of executions and the number of organs didn't add up.
The transplant volumes increased substantially after the persecution of Falun Gong began. And I mean, there's a lot of other evidence, but the most likely explanation for the increase is the Falun Gong. We pursued every investigative trail we could find. In the report, you will see that there are 18 different avenues of proof and disproof we considered and evaluated. Our bottom line conclusion, after considering everything as best we could, was that the allegations are true. We believe them to be true, that this harvesting is indeed happening.
Matus says what made Falun Gong organs especially attractive was the practitioners' healthy lifestyle. They do not drink or smoke. On many of the recordings of phone calls made to more than 100 Chinese hospitals, doctors assure callers that transplant organs are from healthy Falun Gong practitioners.
都是那种健康的法轮功是吧？健康的法轮功。对，看就是学好的才能做完，因为这种东西，这要保证质量的。那是都要像你们都要做监狱去自己去挑选是吧？对，肯定。
This is shocking. So at the end of that, you see there's recorded conversations that folks are calling and requesting specific types of organs that they want from these healthy Falun Gong. And actually, Enver, I'm going to ask you a question about this. What did you see happening like that? Through your research and you uncovering these things as well? I mean, how is it that, is there some sort of database? Where do they keep these people? How many are kept that someone can call up and almost like you're ordering meat from the butcher that you want this particular cut? How's that system work?
You asking me or Dr. Enver?
Dr. Enver, actually. Or
okay, good. Dr. Enver, no, please, yeah.
Well, I would like to start with something else, if I'm allowed. Mitch mentioned that persecution of Jewish people. I was also wondered how such atrocity could happen in Germany. So I come across with this book. You see, they thought they were free. And this book has taught me how to look at the country I come from. That is China. Now, the billions of Chinese people, they think they are free. They think they are the free country, and they are the democratic country. They are the most happiest people on earth. So does many Chinese doctors and nurses. It is impossible to describe this whole things in the short time period. I want to give you two examples. One of them is if you log into Chinese National Voluntarily Organ Donation Registration Agency, the website. I did this morning. The voluntarily registered donor number is slightly over 3 million. What does that say? Let me give you UK as example. UK, its registered donor is 24 million. And the 24 million, it is 30%, more than 30% of its population. But 3 million is less than 0.2% of China's population. Despite on this, in China, you can have 2 pairs of lungs in 5 days. How can you do that? In UK, if you want to have a pair of lungs transplantation, you have to wait for 2 years or 3 years. But in China, only 5 days. And that is reported by the Beijing Youth newspaper in December 2019, just shortly after the pandemic. And they reported this case under the breakthrough of technology. They said they have found a new way of treating this COVID-19. How? Because if your lungs is damaged, they just simply give you a pair of new one. That case, they gave him a pair of new lungs, and this lung didn't work. In 5 days' time, they got him another pair of new lungs. Can you imagine? Just think, you come to a restaurant, and the chef asking you if you want to eat a fish, and the chef asking which fish you want to eat, and they will pick that one, and you will show them that one, and they will pick that one and prepare that for you. Because human organs is not like flesh, like meat you buy, you put in the freezer, eat 10 years later. No, it doesn't work like that. Human organs only can survive less than 10 hours outside human body. So if you want to store the human body and keep these organs alive, you have to keep the humans alive. That is to say, China is keeping enormous large number of human beings in somewhere waiting to be slaughtered.
Gosh, so, go ahead.
Yeah. So let me come back to that point I made about guns. Can anybody tell me how many Americans got killed by guns? Not during the wartime, during the peacetime. How many? I saw there was a statistic. It says less than 50,000 and over 200 years period.
Wow.
Okay, 50,000. But do you know U.S. Soviet. Soviet is only government controls guns. Citizens they are not allowed to have guns. How many citizens got killed? Not during the wartime. It's 30 million. And China, how many citizens died, killed by the government? Excludes this deaths in the wartime, is 50 million. Are you ready to give up your right to survive? To become the lamb in the stable so that they will slaughter you at any time they want? So wake up, America. Don't give up.
I agree. I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. But you would think that it seems like, wouldn't you think that so many of the people in the U.S. government that are pushing for, as an example, to get rid of guns, which, yes, if you look historically across all the different countries that had genocides that were from tyrannous governments, whether it was Cambodia, Vietnam, China, Turkey with the Armenians, that gun control was always a step. Even Germany, that gun control and removing of that was always a step. So wouldn't the people that are in charge of our country understand that and want to protect us from that?
They understood that very well. They don't want to protect you. They want to protect themselves. Who is in power, who is super rich. They want to protect themselves from you. That is the agenda. And just to that question, in China, let me give you another example. In 2008, 6 Chinese surgeons has published an article under one of Chinese medical journal. And during this article, it says, it was about transplantation. It says, the donor brought into the theater and the general anesthetic applied. This tells you the donor is alive. Because if donor is dead, you don't need anesthetic. So the donor is alive and brought into the theater. Then, if this is a kidney transplantation, then I have no objection, because I can sell one of my kidney and take my money and go home. But in that case, it was combined heart and lung transplantation. Can you imagine? If you don't think carefully, you don't pick up the problem here. The problem is one human being, they only have one set of heart and lungs. And that donor was alive. So they took this donor's heart and lungs and give it to somebody else, and they didn't tell you what happened to the donor. Isn't it creepy that they have brought that execution into the medical theater where human beings' life should be saved? And that is nowadays China.
Gosh, it's incredible. It's hard to comprehend.
That is published on Chinese medical journal.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
So, Mitchell, I have a question for you. Do the people that are getting these transplants, are they all Chinese? Are Americans traveling to China? Because I know that in America, the wait for certain organs could be 3, 4, or 5 years. Are there people around the world that are maybe thinking, gosh, China has a lot of prisoners are executing, and I can go there and get a lung in a week? Are people traveling to China and unknowingly contributing to this?
Oh, absolutely. I think Dr. Enver can shed some more light on this. But what I would like to say, backing where these organs are being sold to, we know where these organs are coming from, the Falun Gong practitioners, particularly the Uyghur Muslims, House Christians, and Tibetans, the main groups. Yet where are they being sold to? Now, Dr. Enver Tothi talked about the coronavirus, how they are selling the organs back to the Chinese people. And at intransplantabuse.org, that I think was up on the screen about 5-10 minutes ago, there are all the books. Now, Ethan Gutman has wrote a book about the slaughter, 10-year investigation report about the Falun Gong. He's writing another book or two on the Uyghur Muslims, as Dr. Enver Tothi was talking to us back earlier. He's in Turkey now, Ethan. David Kilgore and Mattis, as you just saw on the clip from Hard to Believe, a documentary, has written Bloody Harvest, and their investigative reports are on intransplantabuse.org. So I wanted to just follow up on what the doctor was talking about, how, first of all, the Chinese people, there's only 3 million registered, but yet why is there only such a small amount? Is because the traditional value of ancient China took very serious to keep and remain the body intact from life to death. The violation that the CCP has done has violated ancient law. It's like violating the constitutional laws of the land. You cannot do that. It's against the Constitution. It's against the Constitutional Republic. It's against to take away the guns, as we were talking about, to render the people helpless, to slaughter them, as doctor was sharing. But there's a very interesting source of where these organs are coming from, as I was saying, and where they've been sold to. And the reason why they've been sold back to the Chinese people is because China has 130 million hepatitis B carriers. And in addition to over half of the world's new liver cancer patients, about 350,000 cases per year, for the 8 million end-stage liver patients, what do you think the most effective treatment is? Transplantation. So not only is the Chinese Communist Party doing business with the medical associations and rich foreign nationalists who come to China on a specified date, reducing waiting times from 4 to 8 years to 4 weeks to almost now days, and they want to get it down to hours because they've made a multi-billion-dollar business out of this, but they're selling it back to their own citizens unbeknownst to the actual population. And I remember I did a very, very intense and mind-blowing interview with Dr. Enver and Professor Sadiq on genocidal studies, and he focuses more on the Uyghur Muslims. And these two gentlemen, and Enver can attest to this, were sharing about how the Chinese Communist Party have been intentionally reducing populations and turning these people into robots and forcefully lining people up outside hospitals and blood testing them in order to steal the organs. And this is not just from adult victims. These are children as well. And Dr. Enver actually showed us the children that were trafficked in ice boxes where their organs were cut out. And yeah, it's crazy. And like I said, Seth, this hasn't been carried out by any other regime on the earth. There is a saying that many regimes, many empires, many queens and kings or dictators killed in order to conquer. The Chinese Communist Party conquered in order to kill. And this is what's going on now, just for money, for power, for control. And I think Emma could elaborate more on where these organs are sold to and who are buying them.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Enver.
Right. I think we are facing enormous difficulties in finding out who the recipients are. But we can make a clever guess. There are just people with power and the people with money. Regardless who are they. Doesn't matter you are American, you are Japanese, you are British, you are Arab. Doesn't matter. You pay money, the CCP will deliver organs for you. There was a rumor that it was rumor, but now I can tell you, a friend of mine who told me this secret information, and I couldn't reveal this, but now I can because he is dead. He passed away. He is dead in a very suspicious circumstances. He showed me a document that he didn't give it to me. He said, just Arab people or Muslim countries, they pay the money to a broker, then they will receive a letter from their own embassy from Beijing. Then they will take this letter, come to Urumqi to have organ transplantation. Why? Because that is halal organs. Yes.
Wow.
That is offered by Xinjiang because halal organ only means Muslims. Because if you are not Muslim, your organ is not halal. Unfortunately, such do exist.
So you have wealthy Muslims from around the world then that are traveling to the Xinjiang region to get specifically Muslim organs. Is that correct? And halal? Or yes. My goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
And there was a picture taken in one of the airport in Kashgar. And on that picture, it says expressway for the organ transplantation. It is on the floor. That sign is on the floor. So if you are carrying organs, you can pass through here and pass the control as quick as possible. Anyone saw such sign, you will understood where this airport located is exporting human organs. So think about it. Does this Kashgar, they have high technology that they can produce human organs in the factory? No. Only human organ only can be produced from another human being. So think again, how large that traffic has to be for them to create the special pathway for you to pass quickly. And there are 3 pictures. One is in Kashgar, one is in Urumqi, another one is called in Qinghai province, in Xining city. And those 3 airports located in the sparsely populated area of China. How would that be possible? If we see such sign in Henan province, maybe we say, okay, we understand because Henan is the most crowded province of China. But no, we saw this 2 in Xinjiang, 1 in Qinghai. The whole population of Xinjiang only 25 million. How can they produce such vast number of human organs? I couldn't get my head around how. Only by looking at some other sources, we just make a clever guess. For example, starting in the middle of 2016, we have seen that the Chinese government carried out health check for the Uyghur people in Xinjiang. We asked the question, why don't you do this for Han Chinese people in Xinjiang or other minorities? Why only Uyghur? They don't, of course, we can't get answer. They said it is under this health care system. We do free health care for you. But what we suspect is they are making organ database. And in 2017, they changed this into collecting human DNA. But human DNA, you can just swap your cheek and you can do it, but they're still taking blood. Why? Because they are doing this organ online database. So that makes this so easy. If you want an organ, you just submit your own blood sample, and they will put into the database, and they will find a man in Kashgar, in one of the Kashgar village, is suit for you. Then this man will be arrested by police under accusation of terrorist suspect. Then he will disappear, and nobody allowed to ask where is he. Then so his organ will be.
It's almost as if in Xinjiang they're keeping basically a giant cage of people that we know that with their their tracking systems and their picture ID, they can locate someone's location within minutes. So it's so basically they can find anybody instantly, and then they can make up a crime. The person disappears, and then they're gone. So there's no reason to actually even keep them in a prison. Actually, it costs more money that way. They can just let them live out their free until they just disappear in a van.
Exactly. And then now they put many Uyghur people in a concentration camp. That makes the job even easier. For example,
this reminds me, makes me think of a lot of the different discussions about the vaccine passports and the digital ID and tracking of those things. And I think the more I understand about what's happening in China with this, the more I get concerned over any kind of digital monitoring of health or tracking of citizens like that. I mean, do you see any of these things that could be potentially threatening, the people in America or coming here?
If America use Chinese technology, that is not if I think, that is going to be. You just 100% sure of it. I'm not suspecting that they are doing it. No, I'm sure they are doing it. That is CCP.
Yeah. So let's I want to do a pivot into what's positive. And this has been a heavy episode, which sometimes they are. And look, the world is not a land of rainbows and happiness right now. This is a hard time we're going through. But what's being done? What has the reaction internationally been to this? And maybe actually, Mitchell, this is a good question for you because I know you've been very involved. And I also want to learn, Mitchell, more about what got you involved in the first place with this.
My heart and my conscience and my duty as a human being to do the right thing. When I was studying international business at the university, when I was doing international business, I was supported by my father in one of the top 10 business schools of Atlanta, Georgia. I am an American citizen, South African raised. My parents, well, not my parents, my grandparents, I believe, and my great-grandparents fled Nazi occupied Hungary and Odessa and Kiev before coming to South Africa. And I was born there. Then I was raised in the States. And one day when I was at a festival, I came across this in Athens, Georgia, at the university. I came across this Falun Gong spiritual movement. And coming from a Jewish family, I loved, the rituals of Judaism and Christianity. But I was more inclined in the mysteries of the Eastern science, and I loved Bruce Lee. So I was quite fascinated by this ancient mind and body spiritual movement with these exercises, and I thought it was quite neat, and I was intrigued. I walked up and I saw, wow, what is this? And they mentioned that this is Falun Gong, an ancient meditation group of 5 exercises and a philosophy of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance that is universally accepted as in Christianity, Buddhism, Catholicism, Protestantism. So I was like, that's pretty neat. But then on the other side, I saw stop the brutal persecution of Falun Gong. And I got to learn more about it, and I was so ignited by my heart to do something. So I started this campaign at 21 years old to do everything I could to expose this. And at that time, we didn't know that this organ harvesting was going on. Those are the exercises, as your viewers is watching. Those are just the exercises that bring the body of a person to incredible health. And this is why the CCP targeted this particular group that became the largest spiritual movement in China. By 1998, between 70 and 100 million people were practicing, estimates of the Chinese government themselves. And they knew how powerful and popular the exercises were, where illnesses, ailments, and injuries were just vanishing quite miraculously. It became the life force of China. And the largest amount of people, the stark contrast of ideology, just like Christianity or the Uyghur Muslim culture, where they are good people, they believe in themselves, they believe in their families. So do the Chinese people, but the CCP destroys families, dismantles the traditional values, robs people of their dignity, and kills without regard. So it's completely in stark contrast to the righteous, upright religions or moral compasses that they embody. So they targeted Falun Gong. And the third reason why they targeted Falun Gong, particularly, is because their organs were incredibly healthy. So we started to see reports in 2006, when David Kilgore and David Mattis came out to expose this, confirming the allegations that between 40 and 50,000 innocent Falun Gong practitioners at that time were harvested for their organs. Now, in 1995, Enver was conducting this forced organ harvesting. So between 1995 and 2006, there were way more people that were being harvested. And the communist regime say, oh, it's just convicted prisoners. But yet when you look into the system, the prison system, many of the prisoners are infected by hepatitis B. And because hepatitis B infects the liver and the pancreas, they render their organs unhealthy and toxic, and they cannot be sold to the highest bidder, right? So any plan of that happening would not allow the communist regime to make such a multi-billion-dollar business. So they had to resort to the prisoners of conscience. So they started to, first of all, demonize Falun Gong as some kind of terroristic cult, banned it on July 20th, 1999, has spent 1/4 of China's gross domestic profit for the last 21 years invoking the secret police, the actual Chinese military, and all levels of society, economic, political, and social, mandating and declaring a war on Falun Gong just to take them to these state-mandated hospitals, turn the doctors into murderers, kill them for their organs, and sell them for the most healthiest organs in the world, and make a fortune. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
in as little as I could say, you know.
Yeah.
It's cut a long story short.
I mean, I know that a lot of the religions have gone through persecutions over the different years, and I think that what I'm seeing and feeling in America is that the sites are starting to target Christians, right? And I think that that's also something understanding communism is that communism knows that God is what strengthens people against it, and so it tries to seep into the society and undermine, Christianity or really any belief that gives strength against it. So, what do you think this means for Christians in America? This happening there, and what it means for us here.
You know what? I think a lot of your audience, I have an intuitive feeling, are Christians, and yes, they have been persecuted and targeted, and same as truth seekers, and those of the Second Amendment, and this CCP radical Marxism has infiltrated into the West. And what I would say for Christians, and I actually pulled up one of my best verses. I'm not a Christian, but I definitely come from a Judeo-Christian family, and I've studied the Bible, and I am intrigued by the Christian philosophy and Christian religion, which is upright and noble, and embodies the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And that's why Falun Gong, that's why I believe in my life, when I've been dealing with a lot of ministries, and they are very empathetic to Falun Gong and understand the suffering, because they know what it means to suffer. But I have an Ephesians quote which reads, "Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything to stand firm, then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." So what I would say is to truly...
Amen. My goodness.
Yes, that's what I feel. So
thank you for sharing that.
Sure, with pleasure, Seth. And it's truly so. I encompass that, because to fail to support the good, in any regard, in anywhere we live, and in any race, religion, creed, or gender, to fail to support the good and to fail to expose evil is unacceptable. So that's what I say to your Christian audience and your audience, and why it is important. If I just may add one more thing, why it is important for everybody, whether you are in America, whether you are in Japan or Asia or Italy, and are 100 miles away from this madness and this evil. Why is it important? Because imagine it was your families, your friends, and your colleagues being sent in mobile execution vans, your businesses being closed, your children being taken custody of, you being banned completely by an evil social credit score. What would you do?
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. My goodness. Enver, do you have a message for us here in America?
Well, I have to admit that life will be difficult if one of your organ is failed. And we understood that it is your right and to extend your life. And if you have mean to do so, yes, we cannot against that. And the organ transplantation, it is very good technology. But the only question is, this technology fell into whose hand? I love to see such a technology in United States, not in CCP-controlled China, because there are many people raised the question, did this donor who gave me his organ sign this voluntarily donation paper? Was he willing to do so? Then CCP will produce whatever needed document, needed signature, and they are capable of. So only things I can say is we are, how to say, follower of Jesus or disciple of Jesus, or we are slave of the God. I don't know how to say this perfectly, but we are going to face judgment when we pass to another world. Then, for example, at least I can say, this is at least I could do. But please, when you pass to the another world, don't tell God that you have caused another life death to extend your own life. Because we are equal on other world, we are equal in God's kingdom. That's all I want to say.
Amen.
Thank you. Wow. So it's been an hour-long interview. I want to thank both of you so much for coming. This has been incredible. But I want to take just a few minutes to see if any of our audience who've been very active commenting and very engaged, just want to see if anybody has any questions for either Dr. Tothi or Mitchell. So please, if you have questions, we're happy to have them. We'll put them up on screen. So I'll go ahead and read them out, and whichever of you want to answer. Actually, so this is a question that I saw pop up because someone said they were watching from China, and this person had actually been commented. So if you live in China and are participating and logging in and being here, aren't they tracking you? And I believe that person had a VPN, but can you either of you talk about how this works? Why would someone, it's like, can you not just log on to YouTube and watch a video?
Please, Doctor. Please, Enver.
I'm not really good on such IT questions.
I'll share with you. In 1999, the Chinese, 1 month before the Chinese Communist Party declared war and banned Falun Gong in China, they created a 610 office on June 10th, 1999. That sits on top of the Chinese Communist Party, that controls all levels of economic, social, and political mandates and policies. This is the extent to how far the Chinese Communist Party would be to go to wipe out something. And they came together with Microsoft, Yahoo systems, Cisco systems. That's the archfiend. That's the evil head of the Chinese Communist Party, by the way, Jiang Zemin, who started, the president of China, who started this brutal campaign against these innocent people, and has continued through dictator Xi. But I do know for a fact, and we do know for a fact, that the cyber warfare, the bioterrorism, and the complete censorship, which is called the Operation Golden Shield project, that is a firewall surrounding China. It is just as large as the Echelon project, which is basically the biggest censorship program in the world, was initiated about a year to 10 months before the complete banning of Falun Gong. Remember, guys, ladies and gentlemen, this is the largest spiritual movement in all of Chinese history, 100 million people. Not to mention the Uyghur Muslim population in Urumqi, and Xinjiang, as Dr. Enver Tothi was sharing. So this is an evil that has to be exposed. And what I would say is that if you are in China, as I am in communist Vietnam, I'm 100 miles away from the Chinese border. And this is all party state. This is controlled. You are not free here. And I could be in a lot of trouble doing what I'm doing. But do not give up the fight. Stay strong, stay peaceful, but be vigilant in your efforts to clarify and expose truth, no matter where you are and no matter what you do. And that is what I feel, whether you're in China or not. The Chinese practitioners of Falun Gong, of Christianity, of Uyghur Muslims are quite profound in their courage, in their tenacity to expose evil, and I applaud them with all my heart. And I work with many of them that come as refugees into Vietnam, as well as the Vietnamese. So I'm grateful to them. We had to shut down our office because of the VCP, but I don't want to go further with this because I don't want to be in more trouble, or, you know, I'm in a communist country. So with that, Seth, if I may, well, if you have any other questions, but I'd love to, before we leave, give out some of the websites and mention the Hard to Believe documentary that your viewers can actually watch and get more insight into what's going on. After more questions, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, and we can put those in the description under the video.
Great.
One question just from Elizabeth Rose, who asked, how can we pray for you both specifically now?
Go ahead, Enver.
Please pray for us, because the evil spirit from the CCP is still at large and still at work. And
Yes.
I can feel that. For example, the Uyghur Christian Society's bank account, after 3 years successfully running, been closed down for no reason. No reason was given. And I couldn't open from another bank. They take my application and no response. Please pray for the elimination of CCP's evil spirit. Thank you.
Amen. And pray for all the good people out there that are fighting the good fight, that are on the front lines, like Enver and us, giving our lives to protect the dignity of morality and humanity. And for I'm grateful for people who are listening to us, to listen to Dr. Enver Tothi, because I love when I always come on with Doctor, because this man has gone through so much. He's carried a burden for all these years and has had the courage to speak out where many people don't. Many doctors, many people are fearful of doing this. I don't think you can ever conquer fear, but when you can embrace it and focus it on something that is important, I think it becomes a force for good. So yes, we are fearing for our lives. Anything could happen, but at least, you know, what is a man who cannot make the world a better place in God's eyes and in the Lord's eyes? And so, you know, 5 weeks from now, 5 years from now, whenever we see this massive revelation, as we are in Revelations now, of the CCP committing these heinous crimes, this new form of evil against such innocent people, at least we can, you know, nod our head in dignity and said, you know, we did our best. So anyone out there, I think I pray for people to do something, maybe sign a petition. We cannot bomb the railway roads like we did we tried to do in World War II. We can go to war with China. I mean, that will be nuclear death for all of us. I think what people can do is to go to the websites and sign a petition and look at Dr. Enver Tothi's testimonies and watch the documentary Hard to Believe that has won 18 awards around the world, and read up on the CCP and how diabolical it is through the Epoch Times editorial series out of New York, which is incredible and an insight that hasn't been really measured by any other social media in terms of the insight into China. So I would highly recommend and pray that people learn about this, share the website, share the information, and become a voice of support to Falun Gong and the Uyghur Muslim community and the Christian community, obviously, and the Tibetans who have been slaughtered for their organs and massacred in this genocide.
Thank you. Very good answers. Actually, Marianne Hart asked, is there any chance of stopping this evil? And I think that really is, you know, what you're saying and what, especially what I took from the Bible verse that you shared, is it's time for all of us to put on our armor of God And as I've talked about before on the show, this is, you mentioned Revelations. This is the battle. This is good and evil. I think that there's never been a time before like this with such evil on the earth. But I also think it's contrasted by such goodness opposing it. And I think that ultimately the question comes down to, if not now, then when? And if not us, then who?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, another question from Matt I want to ask. If this hit mainstream media news, do you think larger countries like the USA would take action? Enver, what are your thoughts on that?
I think this has already been mainstream media. And the New York Times reported in this 2015. And let me answer this question in a different way. For example, if we ask one MP, say, would you please do something on this issue? Then what happens is that this MP just needs an organ. And his country told him that you need to wait for 3 years. And then the Chinese has got the information, and the Chinese come say they offer him the organs in 2 weeks' time. Do you think this MP will take action to stop it? Or what will happen? Because I respect every single person's desire to live longer. So this is kind of dilemma, and this is kind of question we really have no answer to.
Yeah, I think it's a
Exactly.
moral. I think it's where the conscience
Yes.
becomes the only thing that we can use to make these kinds of decisions. What our own conscience.
If I may, Seth, I just wanted to share with you as well. There was a leaked database of 2 million, as I said before, Chinese Communist Party members, revealed that the thousands of Chinese Communist members have been infiltrating the US, the UK, Australian government agencies, companies, news medias, news reports. And so it's very hard to get the truth out. And these people, unfortunately, you know what I want to pray for, truly? I want to pray for those who are complicit, aligned with the CCP, because I worry about their souls. I worry what, as Enver was saying, in the other world when they pass, what are they going to say to God? You cannot say that, you cannot make the excuse that you were told and given the order and you had to do it. Your soul is in your keeping. Your soul and your decisions, and you're responsible for your life and others, are in your hands. And when you look upon God and say, God, and God asks, the Creator asks, well, what did you do? Were you there? Were you there on the front lines, regardless of your life being in danger, your assets being taken away, your family being jeopardized? Did you do something to stand up against this evil? And you did not? Well, that is the burden. I mean, that's a decision that people have to make. All I know is that the soul is in one's keeping. So the infiltration into these media companies, as one of your viewers had asked, or Matt asked, yeah, of course. I mean, the US would have done, people would have never allowed this, but because of the concealment, the deception, the outright just suppression of these human rights atrocities, it's shocking. Even the United Nations. I remember a organization called the Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting, DAFOH, when I was working in one of the offices here, which I won't mention in Vietnam just for my safety and others. We heard that, and I wrote the report on it. I was sitting in the office and I had to write a report about why the Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting, this ban of doctors against the organ harvesting in China, rescinded the largest, or one of the largest petitions to the United Nations urging the UN to do something, and the UN just ignored it. Then the reports were coming out about how the UN, at least 4 specialized units, have been controlled by the CCP, and even had the bid, almost won the bid, the CCP won the bid to the intellectual property, as well as the World Health Organization, colluding with the CCP, which is now the Communist Health Organization. And as you asked earlier, with Biden, they're all in it together. They've made a fortune off this, especially with the institutionalized slavery system funded and established the consumer market that has been going on for 30 years since Bill Clinton sold the NAFTA agreements down to communist China and sacrificed all the manufacturing that was created by the baby boomers and the GIs and the veterans of World War II that made America for what it was. So it just ties into everything. So with your help, with your viewers' help, with more people, if you're in the industry that have Seth, I pray that we can find more people that can get us onto the mainstream, like Tucker Carlson, like Sean Hannity, like Laura Ingraham, and even on the left, which is hard as well. But left, right, it doesn't matter, because this is a human issue. And as human beings, we need to take responsibility and expose this. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Great. Well, one final question. I do want to wrap up. This has been an incredible interview. But where can people find you both? And what websites would you recommend if somebody today wants to go somewhere and learn more or share a website? Where can they go? What can they do to help?
Well, there is a website called ETAC, and ends organ transplant abuse in China. And you can find my name there and the advisory committee.
Okay, so what is it? Is it EAC?
EAC.
EAC.
ETAC.
EAC, okay.
Yeah, and the transplantation abuse in China.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, great.
Okay. Yeah. I have closed down my Facebook because I lost control of it. Yeah, so I don't have Facebook. But you can put my email address just down there, and anyone, if they have further more questions, they can email me.
Great. Great. And Mitchell, what about yourself?
Well, if anyone out there, as I said, Seth, if there's any hosts that would love to share, if you're in the industry and you have other people that you could put us onto, please contact me and Enver. We would be more than willing to come on. I would suggest endtransplantabuse.org, the website that you just put on and showed, displayed. Also, faluninfo.net to just learn what Falun Gong is, and maybe just sign a petition to support it. It's as the saying goes, the pen is more mightier than the sword. And I would also suggest people watch Hard to Believe, which showcases Enver's courage to expose this evil. That's faluninfo.net. Yes, folks, you can go. That's an incredible journey, an insightful journey into what it is, what Falun Gong is, why 100 million people have been targeted, and why they're killed for their organs. A great breakdown. Simple and yet profoundly important as human beings.
In the documentary, you say it's called Hard to Believe. Hard to Believe,
and that is a free documentary on YouTube. And
okay, good.
I think that's the great thing we can. And one more thing for avid Chinese readers who really love reading about the Epoch Times out of New York City published an editorial series called "The Communist Spectre is Ruling Our World" by the Epoch Times. It's a free publication. You can watch it, read it, or listen to it. I highly recommend that too.
Great, great. Well, thank you both, not only for being here, but thank you for what you're doing. You know, Enver, thank you for what you've done. I think you're an example to all doctors. I imagine that you could have had a great career in China, rising up through the ranks of these things, but obviously you've really sacrificed so many things, and just thank you for what you've done to help humanity. And Mitchell, thank you so much for what you're doing. I just feel so blessed to have you on the show. I think the audience has loved this interview. To all those that watched and learned and want to do something, one of the biggest things you can do is just share this video. This is a great introduction to you hearing it directly from these gentlemen, exactly what they've experienced. So that's a big way to help. Again, just thank you both so much. This has been a wonderful interview. I hope to have you on again, and just keep me up to date with all your progress, and I'll be waiting for your Tucker primetime interview.
Well, I'm grateful to be on. I'm grateful to see Enver, and I'm grateful to see you, Seth. And God bless, and we'll see each other hopefully soon.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for this occasion. And God bless all of you.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.